Hello and welcome back to another Dare to Game video. Today we're playing Starfield and we're going to be going over 6 Star Wars ship designs for Starfield. I don't know why it was so hard for me to get that sentence out, but it was. So what we've done here is attempted to make some of the more iconic ships in Star Wars that you can make in Starfield. And I'm going to, I guess, kind of show you how to do it, maybe? Or I'm going to try to. So let's just get started. So the first one we have here is what I'm calling the Victory 2, and it is a Star Destroyer, or at least that's what I was going for here. Now I think it turned out all right. It's kind of... It doesn't look like an Imperial or an Imperial 2. I think it kind of looks like the Victory 2. The flatter bridge on top that's kind of lower down makes it look a little bit like that. Or maybe you could call it an Acclamator, since this could be your single central spire. Either way, so I would say either a Victory or an Acclamator, but I think it works pretty good for that. It has the general triangular shape. We've got our big circular engines on the back, our bridge up high, decent weapons, and I've made this one so it is quite good. So this is a Class C ship, plenty of firepower, 30 light year jump range, 4,500 for the shield. So this is actually a pretty solid ship as far as stats go. But let me attempt to show you how to build this one, I guess, just in case you want to try building one like this. So our basic structure is going to be a square of hab pods, and you can use whatever habitation pods that you want. I pick ones that are useful to me. So the way that I usually start when I'm building a ship is I will put down the landing bay first, because it'll raise it up and everything. And then right behind the landing bay, we have a 3x1 living quarters that I have for extra people on the ship. And then alongside that, we have 4 landing gears, the AccuLander 11 landing gears running along the length here to keep that nice flat profile. Then on the outside here, we don't have, these are not hab pods. These are, everything else is just structural outside of that. On the back here, behind the landing gears, I put my grav drive on this side and my reactor on this side. These are both Class C, so they take up 2 layers. If you wanted the ship to be a Class B one, you could stack them both on one side and save some room with something else, because you could put like 2 fuel tanks on the other side, or fuel and cargo or something like that. We have 1 shielded cargo hold on the back, because I always like to have some shielded cargo just in case I'm running contraband. But up top, above our grav drive, I've got the shield generator. And then I guess moving down the center, just so you know what habitation pods I have, right above the landing bay, so that's the first one, we've got this 2x1 control station on front. Right behind that, we have living quarters. Then we've got an infirmary and an armory. Behind the living quarters, we have an all-in-one berth. And on the side of that, I have a workshop and a science lab. I like to have both of those on my ship, so I have all the workbenches and stuff. And then above the all-in-one berth, the 3x1 here, on the back two, we've got the captain's quarters. And then behind that, we've got a 2 companionways to get up into the bridge. So, and for the bridge, we have the Ares DS 40.2 bridge. So that's how you build the basic structure. Like I said, then it's just structural stuff outside of the hab pods. I've got a spine running down the middle to give it a little bit of dimension, as well as allow us to put a single centered weapon, so we can actually balance off all of our weapon damage. The structural pieces we're using to get the triangular angles are the Nova Cowling 2LSFs. And so we just have 3 forward-facing ones, and then 1 that is turned around on the back, so for both sides. And then on the front, I've got the Demos Belly 4. We've got 2 cargo holds on here. We've got the Galleon S204 cargo holds. They hold almost 1,500 cargo each, so those actually provide us with quite a bit of storage space. Behind both of those, we've got our 500T helium tanks, so each one of those holds 210 jump fuel. And then we just have 4 engines on the back. All of them are the Supernova 2200 engine, providing 25,770 engine thrust and 7,650 maneuvering thrust. So with 4 of those on here, and at the mass that we are with the ship, it's actually a relatively maneuverable ship in space, and like I said, has quite a bit of firepower. And so that is our Star Destroyer. Like I said, Acclamator or Victory 2 class Star Destroyer. I think it looks pretty good and does a solid job of being a Star Wars looking vessel. So that's our first one. Our second one we're going to look at is a smaller ship, and it's the Razor Crest from The Mandalorian. So this one turned out pretty dang good. It's solid-ish, I guess. This one has the advantage of being a pretty simple and smaller, more reasonable design. It's kind of hard to do a Star Destroyer since that's like a, kilometer long ship. But the Razor Crest is actually about the size of the ship that you're actually flying around in the game. So I think it looks pretty good. As far as building this one, it's a bit simpler because we don't have nearly as much stuff going on. If we start in the back with the landing bay, I have the 120 LD landing bay. Right in front of the landing bay, we have a companionway, and then we have a landing gear, and we have the forebelly in the front. And then off to the sides, I just have some more landing gears because we need them for the ship to be able to fly. And so I used the Hope 6 landing gears, the fore and the aft ones, to give us a consistent design, and I use those on both sides. Our middle layer on the front, just for looks here, I have the Stroud braking engine on the front because we have to have something here in between, and I think visually that looks the best. Then right behind that, I have the workshop, a 2x1 workshop, and on the sides we have the side caps to make it kind of smooth and round. On the front, I use the one that you can put a weapon on. On the back here, we've got the Deimos companionway right behind that workshop, and on the sides we have our little wing strut things that allow me to mount a weapon on the side on the back as well, because weapons are part of the Mandalorian religion. On the back, we've got our reactor right above our landing bay, and I just used the best Class B reactor we have because I didn't have room for Class C stuff on the ship. And then off to the side of that, we have some White Dwarf engines just to make sure that we actually have enough thrust, considering our side-ported engines don't give us enough for, max performance. Then the top of our ship, we have the Deimos belly aft on the back that gives us that upswept look like the Razor Crest has. We have one Galleon S204 cargo hold, so we actually have decent cargo space. On top of that, we have the Vanguard Bulwark shield generator. It's the best Class B shield generator in the game. Then we have the RD3000 Beta grav drive. It's the best Class B grav drive in the game. We have our captain's quarters on the front, a 2x1, and then our Daimyo enhanced cockpit. And then our engine mounts on the side. We've got the Stroud engine bracer on both sides. The Nova 1050 engine. It's the best as far as Class B engines go. This one gives you the best thrust and also looks right for the side mount like the Razor Crest has. On the front, this is optional. You don't have to have these, but the Taiyo braking engine ports kind of complete the look of the Razor Crest, in my opinion, on the front. And then we have just some fuel tanks on the sides, the M30 Ulysses helium tanks. And then for our color on this one, we just went with a medium light gray since we can't do a metallic chrome like the Razor Crest is. And I did like a goldish accent because there's some dark gold accents on the Razor Crest. I think this one turned out pretty dang good. Stat-wise, it's pretty solid. I managed to get decent maneuverability, actually pretty solid firepower, and plenty of speed, being basically a top-of-the-line Class B ship. So that's the Razor Crest. I like this one a lot. It's clearly not one that's made for a lot of crew since you only have you have room for just a little bit of crew quarters on here. If you wanted to make this one that you could actually take your crew out with you, you could, and you still wanted your captain's quarters even, you could keep your captain's quarters on top, replace the workshop with a crew quarters, and then on the bottom, there's not really room for more crew quarters on the bottom. So really you'd have to give up the workshop for crew quarters. But that's the Razor Crest from The Mandalorian. I think it turned out pretty good, and it's actually pretty easy to make. Weapons are whatever you want. I put some auto Hellion beams on these two back mounts tucked next to each other on both sides. Then I have Atlatl 280B missile launchers, a set of 2 of those, and then we have the Torch P 250 megawatt UV pulse lasers. I've got 2 on these front mounts and 1 right up on the top in the center. So that is my version of the Razor Crest. Next up, we have probably the most iconic Star Wars ship ever, the Millenium Falcon. This one, I went through like 4 or 5 different designs before I finally settled on the one that we have in front of us here, just because you can make it work with a lot of different variables, but it's never quite right. And so we're a little bit more lengthy and less circular with this design, but I think it still works rather well. And I was able to use some asymmetrical looking weapon mounts to actually make it look more Falcon-ish. So I like the way it turned out. But yeah, that's the Millennium Falcon. You can see with this one, we also went with a Class B style ship just because we did not have room for the Class C reactor and grav drive. But overall, it actually turned out really good, and the stats on this one are pretty solid. So as for putting this one together, you can see we've got a lot of structural stuff on it, so a lot of this is just design elements. That means that unfortunately a lot of it is not practical space. Our cockpit is over on the side, which is a lot of fun. I really enjoy that. Just for piloting, it's fun to pilot the ship like that, especially if you do it in first person because it puts you way over on the edge. But yeah, starting down at our landing bay, we have the Hope 4 landing bay. We don't have any hab pods on the bottom level down here, so all of this is either structural components or landing gears. So you can see we have 3 sets of Acculander 11 landing gears on either side. Directly behind the launch bay or the landing bay, we have 2 500T helium tanks, so we got plenty of fuel on the ship. Got some Deimos belly 4s on the front, and then on both of the sides, we've got both of these parts, the Stroud Cap A port 4 bot and the port aft bot. So we've got both of those, and you can see we've got some bottom-mounted missile launcher down here. But yeah, that's the bottom there. Then on the back, we actually have 3 of these 10 ST hauler shielded cargo cargo holds. I thought it made sense since, if you're playing as Han Solo and you want to be a smuggler, then you better have some shielded cargo holds to hide your, contraband. And then we have a main cargo hold up top, so this ship actually can haul a decent amount of cargo for a relatively low amount of mass. Our engines on this ship, we've got 2 Nova 1050 engines on the back, and then 2 Dun 71 engines in the middle, so plenty of thrust, a lot of power with the ship. It's actually quite fast. As for our habitation, we have, on this side, we've got a storeroom, a 1x1 storeroom, and then right next to it, we have the Stroud 2x1 living quarters. Right through here, you can see we have a companionway, and in front of that, we have a 2x1 workshop. Next to our workshop, we have the 2x1 science lab. Next to the science lab, we've got our captain's quarters, and then we've got an infirmary and another storeroom on the back, and then companionways along the back to connect our captain's quarters to our central habitation so that you can walk around the entire ship. And then we have an all-in-one berth on top, which is where our docking port is. I actually quite like the way that the Falcon turned out because everything's all on one level, so you're just walking through doors to get to the cockpit or to other rooms. One of the things I really don't like about Starfield shipbuilding system is all the verticality, because it gets confusing getting around your own ship. But then, for all of the angles and everything, we just used our Nova Culling 2L SFs to get these angles on the front and on the back. So you can see we've got one there. This side is our asymmetrical side, just like the Falcon in real life, or not in real life in Star Wars. Then we have the Stroud caps on top to round it out. We've got our Stroud nose cap for the front and the aft top for the back there. Our front part here, we have the a nose cap C for both of these sides to give us the distinctive shape of the Falcon, and a Nova weapon mount from the structural section in the middle, which is where we have all of our main Hellion beam cannons. Then for the asymmetrical features of the Falcon, because it's kind of got stuff all over the place, I popped our shield generator way on the outside here. We have our docker right in the middle, which kind of looks like the round top part of the Falcon. Then we've got our laser turrets like the Falcon has in Star Wars. So I added those in just for mostly for looks, because I actually don't like the auto turrets in this game that much. But honestly, I really like the way the Falcon turned out. I think it looks iconic. And out of all of the designs that I tried to come up with it, this one is the one that I think turned out the best. So that's the Falcon. Next, we have an X-Wing fighter, which is another one that was actually kind of difficult to do, which makes sense considering it's a snub fighter in Star Wars, and we're basically building something the size of a cargo ship. And in the end, what we have is a ship that over half of the total space on it is not usable space. It's purely cosmetic, but it turned out really cool, and it is fun to fly around in it. So yeah, this is my T-65 X-Wing. You can see on this one, I actually did manage to make it a Class C ship because we had to be really bulky on the back anyway, just because of the way that ships in this game work. So I was able to fit in a Class C jump drive and reactor. So this ship is actually quite powerful. And if you were not concerned about screwing up the outlines, you could even add enough weapons to make sure that it was fully armed as well. I only have one missile launcher on here because I didn't want to screw up the outline of the ship, but you could easily fit more on here and you have enough power for it. So as far as building this one, if we start with the landing bay down on the bottom, I have the NG6 landing bay from Nova Galactic. Right behind that, we have two landing gears, and then 2 to the side. So the bottom of the ship is all landing bay and landing gears. Right above the landing bay, we have 2 HAB units. Both of them are 2x1s. I just have an all-in-one berth. And then right above that, I have a workshop. Then we have 3 more HAB bays in the entire ship, so it's not actually that many. So we have the HopeTech Science Lab over on this side, the HopeTech Living Quarters on that side, which allows us to have more crew with us, and then the captain's quarters on top. And right in front of the captain's quarters, we have our Magellan C1X cockpit. After that, I had to get a little asymmetrical to make everything work, but we have our grav drive is down below this habitation pod on the side, and then, right above this landing gear. And on this side, I just put a cargo hold to give us some space, and also because I need to fill in both sides of that with something. Then we have our fuel drives, which are our fuel tanks, which actually help with the look of the T-65 X-Wing. So we have Ulysses M50 helium tanks on both sides, which gives us plenty of fuel and helps with the look. For our distinctive X-Wings, I decided to use the Demos Bracer A's to give us the little extension. And then we have our Demos Wing A ports on the side, and we have most of our weapons are mounted on those wings out there. So that's how that looks. And then for our rear, we have, like I said, the reactor is right in the back, right above this landing gear, and right below our captain's quarters, we have our docker on the top top of the captain's quarters, as well as a shield generator. For our engines, we have 4 White Dwarf 1020 engines, so just like they would be on an X-Wing fighter in the square shape there. So that's how you build all of the basic structure of the actual usable part of the ship. And then for the 4 section, this is all just structural. You can't use any of this, but it helps with the appearance. So we have the Nova Cowling 2 LTMs, 2 of those on top, and the 2 LBMs for the bottom. And then the front, we have the cowling, both of those again. So it actually looks a lot like the front of an X-Wing. So I like the way this one turned out. For our color, we went all white with red accents. So it's a lot like Luke's T-65 from the original trilogy. I like the way this one turned out. It actually performs quite well. And like I said, because the back had to be a little bit blockier for the design, I ended up being able to make it a Class C ship. So it's actually a lot of fun to fly around in. So that is our T-65 X-Wing. Next up, we have another, not even snub fighter. This time it's an interceptor from the original trilogy. We have the A-Wing. So this one turned out pretty dang cool. It's obviously got some stat problems. It could be better if we weren't really trying to maintain the aesthetics of it here. But for one thing, our engine strength isn't anywhere near potential, which sucks because the A-Wing was famously a very, very fast ship in Star Wars. But if we wanted to strap 2 more engines on here to get our max thrust, it would ruin the outline of the ship. But anyway, pretty easy to build this one. We start with a rear-facing landing bay. So we have the shipbed 200 landing bay on the back. Directly in front of that, we have a Deimos companionway 1x1. And then in front of that, we have our fuel tank, so our 500T helium tank. And in front of that, the Deimos belly 4. Whole center of the ship is red because that's the color scheme we went for with the A-Wing. Then on the outside of the bottom, we have a Stroud Cap A port 4 bot. So we have that on both sides, just rotated so it fits. 2 more landing gears on each side, and then the Nova 1050 engine on both sides of the back. So that's the whole bottom of our ship. As for the middle of the ship, or the middle level, I should say, right above our back landing gear, we have the Tile Midcap B, which is just a structural component, and the Stroud Cowling 1LAST, it's another structural component, and in front of that, the Stroud Cap A STBD 4 top. So 3 structural components, so the whole outside layer of the ship is just structural. None of it is hab pods. In the middle, we have the Stroud Nose Cap B4, so another structural component. Then we have our all-in-one berth down on the bottom. That's our main habitation pod that goes from our landing bay up to our cockpit. Above that, we have our companionway, and we have the Dymo enhanced cockpit. So not a lot of internal space in the ship. If you wanted to, you can switch out the all-in-one berth for whatever you want. Clearly, this is just a ship that you're going to be flying around in by yourself because it just doesn't have enough room for anything else. Off on the sides on the back, we've got the Nova Cowling 1LTF on both sides, and behind that, the Deimos Tail A that helps give us our distinctive A-Wing profile. I went ahead and added on extra weapons. If you were going to just do the A-Wing like it looks in the movies, you would not have these rear-mounted guns, but I wanted more firepower. The A-Wing has side-mounted guns, so you could put one up here, one down here on both sides, and that would look very lore accurate for the A-Wing. But if you do it this way, you can have full power with your auto Hellion beams and 250 megawatt UV pulse light, and still be a very, very powerful ship in combat. For our color, we went with all black for the cockpit because we're imitating a much smaller ship, and it had an all black cockpit in the movies. And then we have red down the center with a gold on the outside, and then the gold ones have red accents on them. I think this one turned out really good. Out of all of them, it maybe looks the most like the ship, despite being way too big in here, because like I said, now we're at the level of a cargo ship, when in the movies we're dealing with a very small interceptor type vessel. But I think it turned out really well, and if you like the A-Wing, this is a great way to go. So that is an A-Wing. Next up, we have one that I actually found a picture of that looked pretty much almost exactly like this on Google, and I was like, that's really awesome, so I'm going to use that. So I did not actually come up with this design or make it up myself, but I think it turned out awesome. It's basically Sebulba's Podracer from The Phantom Menace. And so, very goofy ship, definitely could be made a lot more effectively, but we're going mostly for aesthetics here. So if you're building this one and you want to start with the back section here, it's actually very simple. So we start off with a ship bed 200 landing bay. Directly behind that, we have our Tayo companionway, a 1x1 companionway way basically. Behind that, we have our Class C J52 gamma grav drive, and behind that, we have our SF40 sheared flow reactor. So it's actually a Class C C ship. And then off to the sides, we just have our landing gears. And on this one, we're using the Pinpoint 3G landing gears. So we have two mids and an aft for both sides. Then off to the sides here, if we just extend it to the front, you can see we've got more landing gears. So we have fuel tanks up in front, and then we have our Pinpoint 3G landing gears. Both of these are going to be aft as well. And in between those and our main structure, we've got the Nova bracers. Our top level for our rear section, we've got our Shogun cockpit back here. Behind that, we have another companionway, and then we have our reactor and our grav drive, as I've already showed you. Our shield generator and our docking port are both on the back here, and we've also got some weapons mounted all the way back here. Other than that, the rest of the ship is all in front. So our engines, you might notice, are not in the back. They are up in the front. So we have two Supernova 2200 engines up front here, and then just for design, we have the Deimos braking engines on the front. We have a Deimos Bracer A in the middle, painted purple to look like the little electron-y particle beam thing for pod racers. Like I said, we use the Nova bracers to connect our main ship to the front. Then we use the Nova Wing STBD and connect that to the Deimos Wing A port, and that is what we connect our engines to. So pretty cool design. I think it looks a lot like Sebulba's pod racer, and that's fun. I like how a lot of it is hollow. I really get a kick out of the fact that we have our engines in the front. I think that's a really silly design for a starship, and I quite enjoy that. Our weapons could be a lot more. You could attach other weapons on here, but you end up kind of ruining the look of it. I just have 4 side-mounted auto-Hellion beams. So on our wings here, we've got 2 on each side, and then we've got some missile launchers in the back here, and some 250 megawatt UV pulse lasers in the back as well. So pretty cool ship. Definitely kind of weird to fly if you fly in first person because you're in the cockpit and all of this stuff is in front of you. But if you fly it in third person, it's no big deal. So I like this one. It's a pod racer. Like I said, found this design that was extremely close to this. I made a couple small tweaks here and there, but it was very close to what this looks like on the internet, so I didn't actually come up with this one, but I really like it. And so since nobody's trying to stop this ship or blast us, that is where we're going to leave off for today. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was fun making these ships. Now, it did take a long time to make them all, just because I went through multiple designs. I tried doing an Old Republic freighter ship instead of the Star Destroyer, but in the end ended up getting sick of how I can't make anything circular or angled in this because they decided to make it so you couldn't rotate your structural stuff and your habs in this for some reason, even though they appear to be modular, so you'd think that they would allow you to rotate them. But whatever the case is, I had a lot of fun doing this. If you got any requests you want me to try doing stuff from Stargate or Star Trek or something else, I could try doing the Milano from Guardians of the Galaxy. My wife wants me to try that one. Let me know down in the comment section. But in any case, thanks a ton for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for watching another Dare to Game video. If you liked this video, please leave a like and a comment. If you haven't already, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you like my content and would like to support this channel, consider becoming a member today for as little as $1.99 a month. It makes a huge difference. But in any case, thanks for watching and have a nice day. I'll see you next time.